Thanks for tuning in to Wine Blast. Sign up to Wine Blast Plus for first-class subscriber-only content to access our full archive, support the show and get every episode before it goes on free release. You'll also get subscriber-only discounts with the likes of Corvin, Jancis Robinson Glassware and Academy du Vin Library. Just visit wineblast.co.uk or click the link in the show notes. Hello, this is your wake-up call because you're listening to Wine Blast and you find us immersed in Pays d'Oc, an historic wine heartland that's been revolutionised over the last 40 years and is now a hotbed of innovation and free thinking, so our kind of place.
Yes, welcome to Wine Blast and welcome back to Mediterranean France. We've gone free range. We've been touring the vineyards, making friends with all kinds of people and wildlife in the scenic countryside, not least with this very handsome rooster who was keen to join our tour party.
So this is the second and concluding instalment in our Pays d'Oc IGP mini-series. In the first part, we heard the little-known but intriguing origin story in which Languedoc-Roussillon wine was rescued from desperate times by a handful of leaders inspired by California, no less. They focused on key grape varieties rather than local regional appellations to help sell the wines and make the vineyard fit for purpose.
Now, this was a bold, iconoclastic, some might say heretical move for French wine at the time, fiercely wedded as it was to its cherished notion of terroir. The traditional French wine establishment was vehemently opposed. But against all the odds, the likes of grower Jacques Gravajal and merchant Robert Scarly, backed up by political heavyweights like Jacques Chirac, proved it could work. And that changed everything.
Vin de Pays d'Oc as it was, Pays d'Oc IGP as it now is, was introduced in 1987. Roughly 40 years on, it's become a rare wine success story. After starting from scratch, Pays d'Oc IGP production is now around 7 to 800 million bottles per year, generating over 4 billion euros in revenue. It's sourced from one of the largest vineyards in the world, 110,000 hectares, half the total Languedoc-Roussillon surface. Almost every wine lover will have come across it at some stage because 21 bottles of Pays d'Oc IGP are sold every second across 170 plus countries, often at pretty affordable prices.
So what began as an innovation has become an institution. But what makes Pays d'Oc IGP relevant and interesting today, and what we'll be exploring in this episode, is how it continues to innovate and challenge the status quo in exciting and sometimes eye-opening ways. These are challenging times for wine producers the world over, what with declining consumption, climate change, anti-alcohol sentiment, the cost of living crisis. But can Pays d'Oc IGP producers use their free-thinking approach to help wine fight back?
And that's what we're getting into in this episode. So here's a taster of what's coming up.
It's really new, so people are trying to put it in a box. Yeah, it really is a guilty pleasure. That's why I think it's going to have a much wider impact than rosé. I like to say to turn every small moment into a celebration, because that's what it is.
Chillable reds, the golden rule is it's got to be non-tannic, otherwise it tastes like cold tea. It is a trend, and we love it.
Maison Le Breton and Tim Ford there. We'll be hearing more from them, as well as other key voices in due course. We should thank Pays d'Oc IGP for sponsoring this mini-series and giving us access to these producers and their wines. We'll also be posting some of our personal recommendations on our website show notes, so do check those out.
Okay, so let's start with a quick word on grape varieties. As we've said, this concept was fundamental to Pays d'Oc right from the start, producing and marketing varietal names that would be familiar to people. These days, 4 grapes account for more than half of total Pays d'Oc IGP production. Those are Merlot, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc. And 90% of Pays d'Oc IGP wine is single variety rather than a blend. So, familiar names, popular grapes, French grapes, as Jacques Gravajal stressed in part 1, grown in Mediterranean France and burnished with that rose-tinted French lifestyle charm. You can see the appeal.
What's interesting talking to producers now, though, is the appetite for adventure on the grape variety front. People we spoke to are planting things like Syrah, Chenin Blanc, Pinot Noir, Caladoc, Roll or Vermentino, Albarino, Assyrtiko, Picpoul and Claret. Some of these are only allowed on an experimental basis. There's also a revival of ancestral or historic grape varieties from the region, things like Grenache Gris, Cinsault, Carignan and Bourboulin. In other words, the plot is definitely thickening.
Now, some of these moves are in response to market demand, but much of this is about future-proofing, producers trying to anticipate the trends of the future at the same time as adapting to climate change. So, for example, a major trend noticeable on the ground is a shift towards white and rosé wine. Red wine used to account for more than half of PADOC IGP production. These days, it's around 40% and declining. That reflects falling red wine consumption in the market and also the changing climate.
Although chillable reds may shake that up a bit.
They may indeed.
As we'll discover shortly. But let's bring in the first of our producers to hear how they're working with different varieties and wine styles to future-proof their business. First up, Ricardelle de Lautrec, a thoroughly down-to-earth operation located near Courson between Narbonne and Béziers, with historic family connections to the Toulouse-Lautrec family, incidentally. It was their fine rooster we heard at the start of the episode.
Ricardelle de Lautrec have been organic since 1999 and biodynamic since 2022. They work with 13 varieties, including the likes of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Caladoc, Syrah and Viognier. And they make characterful, rewarding wines that are often exceptionally good value for money. And they're not afraid to experiment either, making many different styles, including natural and orange wines.
These guys have many talents, but fluent English is not prime among them, understandably. So it was very kind of them to want to chat. And this is a short snippet. But I asked Lolly Solves what grapes are important for them and why.
We do a lot of different things with the Chardonnay. For example, the orange wine. A wine of maceration, but we try to do a fresh orange wine with a little maceration, like 7 days, to have a wine very light, and it's good for an initiation to the orange wine.
So that's lovely. So it's making orange wine accessible for people.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to try the style. Orange Chardonnay is maybe not that common.
Yeah.
But how do you find, is it successful? Do people like this style?
Yeah, we all the time look after the tendency of the market. So, for example, I think it's 5 years ago, we look on the market in Canada and USA, and the orange wine was in growing up market. So we say, why not? Why not? And orange wine of PADOC and of our region. So it was nice and it works good. So we are very happy with that.
Yeah. And, you also make natural wine. How does that work? Does it work well for you guys here?
Yeah, we do a natural wine since 10 years. So it's difficult to do a natural wine because sometimes it's going on the wrong size and you can do nothing. And so it's dangerous for the economic of our vineyard, but it's nice because when it's good, it's aromatic, it's without sulfur, it's hand picking, it's more for the environment and for the consumer. And the natural ones are more fruity, more aromatic, more expressive. If we can do all in natural wine, we did, but we don't because it's too much risk for us. So we do a traditional Syrah and we do also the natural Syrah. And for example, I like to have a tasting with someone and say, test this one, try this one. It's Syrah 100%, and try this one, natural Syrah. And you can be the different, you can feel the difference, and the people are it's amazing all the time. They said, wow, it's really different. So it's the PADOC give to us a present to we can do what we want with our single grapes, and it's very interesting.
We had such a fun visit, didn't we, at Ricardelle de Lautrec?
Yeah,
I mean, do you remember that rusty old trailer with the rickety chairs towed by a tractor? And that was our luxury visitor transport. Though we did have possibly the best charcuterie platter I've ever had, 3 tables long to taste alongside the wines. But most of all, we tasted a succession of really engaging, unpretentious wines that were amazing value for money.
Yeah, a great discovery. The kind of discovery you want to make in Pays-Doc, isn't
Absolutely,
it?
yeah.
Delicious natural wines and orange wines, but also successful classical stuff like Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir. And I get what Loli means when she says they'd like to do everything natural, but it's a bit of a risk. If things do go wrong with a natural cuvée, it can be hard to save. Or then you've got concerns like stability over time in bottle and when shipping. So, it's pragmatic not to put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah. And doing biodynamic natural wines because they're not only good for customers, but also employees and the environment. They've got cool labels too, haven't they? So clearly a producer with plenty of tradition, but also looking to innovate and engage modern wine drinkers. And they're also big on rosé, incidentally, something we touched on in the previous episode, because Pays-Doc IGP is one of the largest rosé producers in the French wine category, making more than 200 million bottles per year.
Good stats, good stat. And just to
You
pick
like
up
your
on
stats,
the
don't you?
stats angle,
You're going to outstat me.
you've started, this time looking at organic cultivation. I'm never one to be outstatted.
You're never going to be outstatted, are you? No, I can never
Pays-Doc
manage
is
that.
also the largest IGP producer of organic wine in France, making around 83 million bottles per year, which is roughly 12% of total Pays-Doc IGP production, partly because it's a sunny, windy place, so it's naturally well suited to organics, but also I think because producers are clearly keen to adopt a kind of sustainable approach there.
Which is an excellent segue to our next interviewee. Maison Le Breton of Maison Le Breton, which is based between Montpellier and Nîmes, a company that prides itself on making what it calls everyday Grand Cru, which Morgane explained were affordable but delicious wines, ideal for something like a Thursday pizza night.
Sounds great. But Maison Le Breton isn't just focused on the wine, as we'll discover. They're a proud B Corp company with a strong emphasis on continual improvement and a particular focus on sustainability. Morgane is a thoughtful, dynamic new generation leader who emphasizes the importance of good values in the company as much as good value in the wines. I asked her to give us some examples of this approach.
Well, we realized a few years ago that 40% of our carbon footprint is just the glass bottle. So we started by reducing the weight of the glass bottle, which was so easy because we just needed to purchase a bottle that was lighter. And so, it costed us less money because it's a cheaper bottle, and it was much better for the team working and holding the boxes every day. So lowering the weight of the glass bottle is a win-win situation on all 3 pillars of sustainable development: environment, economic, and social. It's not the case all the time, but it's very good to have something positive like this. Also because the customer actually don't realize it. Even though there's a saying that the heavier the bottle, the better the wine, I do say today to my customers, yes, the bottle weight is very, very important. You are right to weight it, because the lighter, then the better footprint and the better the winemaker is, because it means that he or she focuses on everything that's around the bottle and not just the wine itself.
So you would say the lighter the bottle, the better the wine?
Of course.
Which is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, what have been the challenges of lighter weighting your bottles?
Actually, there's not much, except this idea of image of the wine. We've had this because following this bottle weight, we've had the topic of the capsule, this plastic aluminum thing on top of the bottle. It was about 5 years ago, we wanted to remove it because it's a waste that has no purpose on the packaging, because the cork closes the bottle. And we were like asking all the whys, the whys, why do we do it? Because it closes the bottle. No, it doesn't close the bottle, the cork does. Okay, so why do we keep doing it? Oh, because we needed to put the duty stamp on top of it. No, since 2019, we are able to do it online, so we don't need it. Okay, Why do we keep doing it? Because we've always done it this way. And when you reach this answer, then you can start thinking of, okay, how can we do it another way? This is the kind of things that we're fighting against.
So with the capsule specifically, do you have any idea of how much that is saving you in sustainability, the wastage and other inputs?
That's the terrible part of it, because the capsule is like only 2 grams, so it has no impact. It's just on a more global scale, because we thought about going capsule free a long time ago, but we didn't do it because we were so scared of our customers' reaction. And actually, it was a macro event that led us to remove it just one morning. It was the conflict in Ukraine, because that's where all the aluminum factories are in Ukraine. And so with the conflict, there was no aluminum anymore, so no capsule. There were 9 months waiting to get a supplier to supply you. So we thought, okay, it's today, because we were preparing for this to happen. So we thought it's now or never. And I remember a very beautiful talk with our main partner in the Netherlands, who was like, yeah, I would love to be part of it, to be one of the first to actually put capsule-free bottles on tables. But I also want to sell a lot of bottles, And it was his team who said, yes, but we need to be part of it. It's a movement. It's something going on, and we have to do it. And so we did. And nothing happened. We were so scared of doing it. And I had another customer, a Belgian one, who said that it's not normal. There's something wrong about it. It's very, very ugly. And when I explained him why we removed the capsule, then he said, okay, well, then this is why I will keep offering the bottles. For all these reasons that you told me, because now this is something, so to go back to your questions, the impact on the environment and economic is very, very low, because it's nothing. But on the social and image of wine, this is very, very high, because people now offer our bottles telling to their friends, this is a capsule-free wine. This is very special, even though it's nothing.
So it's emblematic in a way. It's a symbol of what you're trying to do in terms of being sustainable, looking after the environment.
Because this is something that you can see. Practices in the vineyard, you don't see them. There's all the certifications and so on. It's a stamp on the bottle, but this is much more, because this is something that's very breaking from the traditions.
Mm. So would you say, should all wine go capsule-free now?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Follow your lead. In terms of the lightweighting of the bottles, do you have a figure on that in terms of how much, are you saving in terms of carbon emissions and other things?
We did the measure when we started 10 years ago. So we went from, our bottle used to be 600 grams, and we went from 600 to 500. Today we are at 400 and lower. But when we removed only 100 grams 10 years ago, we made a study that showed that we saved the equivalence of emission of a car driving more than 500,000 kilometers a year. It's a lot. That's the most difficult part with the carbon footprint, is that it's big figures, you don't really know what they mean, but it's a lot.
Switching to the vineyard, I know you've been active in the vineyard in terms of sustainability. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there.
We have this vision of creating like an agricultural natural park. Very humble vision of a vineyard. But so we have 200 hectares, and only 40 hectares is a vineyard today. So lots of forest, rivers, and lands, dry lands or meadows. We want to have to keep a ratio of 1 hectare of permanent meadow for 1 hectare of vine, to have this kind of balance for the biodiversity, and also visually to have, because for us, being on a biodiversity hotspot, we need to have this beautiful balance in the vineyard. So we have a lot of different techniques to adapt to climate change, because that's our main threat in the vineyard. So cover crops is something that we do a lot, and agroforestry as well. So introducing agroecological infrastructures in the estate. And we have one plot that is 8 hectares, where we have 1 row of tree every 15 rows of vines. So this is real agroforestry because you have different cultures within the same plot. Agroforestry is part of the IPCC report, so we know that it's something that we have to bring more and more in our culture systems. But there's no guidelines in the report, so it's kind of a learning experience. And the concept of agroforestry is that you have a tree that will grow fruits and flowers that will attract certain species of birds. So the birds will eat the fruits and they will also eat the insects. So the insect won't lay the disease on the vines and the grapes. So as you can see on paper, it's perfect. Like the formula is very great, but it's very difficult to know, okay, which tree is going to attract which bird and make sure that they all work together. So it's a lot about densification, because if we want for this natural system to help us reduce chemicals, because that's the whole point of it, we have to densify everything. So with agroforestry came installing 100 bat boxes, birdhouses around these plots to densify all this biodiversity and make this system beneficial for the agricultural activity part.
I mean, a lot of regions around the world spend a lot of money trying to get rid of birds. And you're actively trying to encourage them.
Yes.
But you really think that introducing trees and hedges back into the vineyards is the way forward?
Yes, totally. Because we know it's not just about shade, it's about the soil life. Soil is where everything happens. It's difficult because we don't see it, but it's below our feet that everything is happening in these 40 centimeters. And all this root network is what makes the soil alive, what makes the vine, all nutriments, and the grapes, and then the wine. So this is why we focus a lot on this, and also with cover crops, especially.
And you planted this in 2018. You are now making some wine from this plot. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that story?
Yes. Well, it's funny because it's called A Beautiful Story. Because it's
in French?
Une belle histoire.
Oh, sounds so much better in French.
And we planted this. This is a Rolle grape variety. So it was very new for us, quite new for our region as well. So we learned a new grape and we planted it in agroforestry. So we learned a new technique and a new agricultural method. And we wanted to make a new kind of wine. So we made 11.5 alcohol degrees wine, which is lighter than our usual white, which are more about around 13 degrees. And we wanted to make so light, fruity, and with very, very small bubbles. We didn't want it to be a sparkling white, but be like a nice chilled white to enjoy by itself or with fruits and desserts.
So this is a really groundbreaking, innovative wine. It's made from a grape variety Rolle, which is a little bit different. It's grown in an agroforestry plot, and it's got these little bit of bubbles. We tried it for lunch; it was delicious. How is this wine going down?
It's very interesting because, like you said, it's really new. So people are trying to put it in a box, but it's difficult because it's not sparkling, it's not frizzante, it's really lower, but it's really, really nice. So we sell it very well just before summer, when summer arrives and people start having beautiful days and thinking, okay, now that's the wine to bring I like to say to turn every small moment into a celebration, because that's what it is.
That's a great philosophy for life. So how are you finding the lower alcohol category more widely? Is that a ever more popular category?
It is, yes. We also worked on a red like this as well. It's called Piccolo Piccolette. It's a red that's around 12 degrees.
Tell us about this sort of chillable red category, refreshing red.
Yeah, it really is a guilty pleasure. I think it's going to follow the same trend as the rosé. In the past, rosé was not considered as wine. Today, it really is. I see the figures. It's a really, really rising category in our portfolio. And I think these light reds are going to be exactly the same. And they might be even better because they are going to attract a wider audience, I think. It's really an opening door. That's why I think it's going to have a much wider impact than rosé, because we are really going to reach a wider audience.
So chillable reds as a big potential growth category, bigger possibly than rosé. And that's a really interesting thought. We did like their piccolo picolette, though, when we tried it, didn't we?
We did. Delicious. Which, incidentally, Morgane recommended with a tian of seasonal vegetables, a bit like ratatouille. What do you think of that much?
Very nice.
Oh, yum. And I can see what she means. People love rosé because it's versatile and fun, and chillable or lighter reds can do exactly that if they're well made, which isn't always easy, of course. And a lot of people do prefer red to rosé, so there's a big potential market there, I think.
Yeah, and that Belle Histoire white is interesting too, isn't it? Made with the Roll or Vermentino grape variety.
Yeah, again, pushing boundaries. You know, in one sense, in terms of the style, it's a lovely, upbeat, refreshing white, but also gently bubbly. So it sort of defies genres, really. But delicious, like many of their wines. And also then, groundbreaking in terms of the fact that it's grown in an agroforestry plot where trees are intentionally part of the growing system to help promote soil life and natural pest control and biodiversity more generally.
Yeah, this is a really intriguing trend, isn't it? Agroforestry. I mean, it's a big thing, particularly in France. Even Cheval Blanc are doing it. And actually, Morgane said they have a neighbouring estate, Domaine de Restanclière, doing lots of applied research into exactly this method. And there are indications it can help along the lines Morgane suggests, and also do things like regulate heat peaks and raise ambient moisture levels when it gets hot, sequestering carbon and preventing frost. As Morgane said, they're doing all the trials, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, it will. I mean, it's fascinating, agroforestry as a potential sustainability solution. And we all like trees, don't we?
We do.
That's all good. Morgane also had some other eye-opening views to share on her vision for wine's future in a challenging modern environment, but we'll come back to those in due course. Meantime, a pause. To recap so far, France is often thought of as a bastion of wine tradition. But Paydock IGP is all about innovation and keeping one step ahead of the game, which is why things like orange wine, natural wine, rosé, organics, chillable reds, lightweighting and agroforestry are very much part of the picture. Future-proofing, it's called.
But that's not all that's going on in Paydock IGP. Time to bring in our third guest, Tim Ford of Domaine Gayda, an organic producer based not far from Carcassonne. Since its inception in 2003, Gayda has built an enviable reputation, making wines from a variety of locations within Paydock, from Roussillon to La Lavinière, including its emblematic spicy Syrah-based blend, Chemin de Moscou.
Tim is English by origin, even though he's now naturalised French, he was keen to add. He was in the rose business in Southern Africa when he met his current business partner, Anthony Record, and winemaker Vincent Chansot. They made the plan that would become Domaine Gayda, which is a beautiful spot, complete with shop, restaurant and luxury accommodation. Tim is the best kind of interview subject, talkative, perceptive, and constantly tasting and enjoying his wines, including the Ultra Camille and Figure Libre labels, which he references in the interview, and which, if you listen closely, you can hear him pouring at the start. It's a great sound. That and also there's a bit of howling wind at the background of the interview too. It's all conjures a lovely picture, doesn't it? I asked him for his thoughts on the Paydock category, given Gayda has majored on Paydock IGP wines from the start.
Yes, right from the start. Well, one thing we didn't really like to have our hands tied by, we wanted the freedom of 58 grape varieties, blend what we do, what we like, the freedom. And this is one of our ranges called Figure Libre, which is freestyle. And that's based on the concept of we're given the freedom, not weird old fogies in weird robes and jewels and weird handshakes telling us what's good and what's not good. We can make that decision ourselves.
But it's about giving you a freedom of expression.
Yes. However, the opportunity is 58 grape varieties and of a large area of vineyards, but that's the challenge as well. How do you float to the top of that? That's the challenge. But if without challenges, what's going to get you out of bed in the morning?
So what's been your approach in that sense?
Float to the top quality, of course. Uncompromising work. Everything we do is based on quality. Brand building, that's very critical. My kids are both in the fashion business. They just tell me the story of Hermès. And they've added a brand value, 5 times production cost, but they started making saddles with incredible workmanship for years and years and years. So building a brand is not just fabricating a brand, it's creating a perfect quality product based on quality for years and years and years, and you create that sustainable brand. And we've done that with our flagship brand, Chemin de Moscow. It's that uncompromising approach to quality that Vincent has done and achieved. And he's created a brand, but it doesn't happen overnight, like it didn't happen to him, as they've been going over 120 years, and they now create a brand. Now they can charge 5 times their production costs, Maybe we'll be able to do that one day. Not yet.
Now, Pédoc has a strong varietal focus. Which varieties are getting you most excited right now?
Well, you asked me to select 3 wines. Well, I showed you 3 wines which really, really stand out for us, which is Macabeu, Grenache Gris, Grenache. Vermentino is another one, which we do a blend, Vermentino and a Syrah called En Passant. I would say Vermentino, Macabeu or Macabeo, whichever you come from, Grenache Gris. Those are the ones that for us, we really want to put on a pedestal, because we believe they have unique characters. When you taste them, I think you can't really say this is like this is like that. Well, it's got its own identity. It's from the Roussillon. And it's very terroir specific. It comes from a home. It has provenance. Provenance is really important, as I'm sure everyone will know. Provenance is the basis of storytelling,
But why those grape varieties particularly?
I think they define who we are. We want to be a bit different. We want to have our own identity. I wouldn't say economics come into that, because they're very small batches. They help us profile the winery of what we can do if the consumer's willing to pay, 25, 30 quid a bottle of wine, happy days. However, we are limited because some of those vines we're producing, those are, 80, 90 years old. You can't recreate that, They're that age, and they're very old, and it's not really that viable, even though we're selling for a high price, a fine wine price, 25, 30 quid a bottle in England. But I think it reflects who we are, doing something different, doing it with care, respecting nature, respecting the old vineyards, trying to keep the heritage going, perpetuating something that's been there for a bit of the heritage of the Languedoc.
I was going to say, just talk to us a little bit about that, the importance of preserving heritage. These are historic grape varieties in the region.
Yeah.
They speak of the region.
Yeah, I think you can, I think you have knee-jerk reactions always to the market, can't you? So I think having some heritage varieties, and maintaining those, I think that creates some stability and some... it's not all following market demands and market trends, But I mean, someone's saying, oh, the global wine business is shrinking by 3-4%, but it's still globally worth $500 billion. It's still a massive business. People are going to be drinking wine long before I've gone, or my children have gone, or my grandchildren. So although it's challenges of changing consumer behavior, it's still a massive. So there's still reason to keep going on some of these heritage varieties, to keep them there and to keep them going. So people know, what people used to drink and how it was, what grape varieties were around. Like you talk about vessels, in amphoras and clays. Well, 20 years ago, no one did that. And now everyone's like they were doing 2,000-3,000 years ago in Georgia, So there are heritage grape varieties. There's heritage methodology also in making wine.
Turning to styles, we've just had a lovely chillable reds. Talk to us about chillable reds in the market right now.
that is we love it, and I think that Grenache forms in that bracket enormously. I mean, chillable reds, the golden rule is it's got to be non-tannic, otherwise it tastes like cold tea. It really is an awful drink. But if you've got soft tannins, and Grenache, of course, is a great variety. It lends itself to soft tannins. Chilled reds, I mean, we see it everywhere. I mean, it is a trend, and we love it. I mean, 12, 14 degrees for a nice summer red. I mean, it's wonderful. And there's certain varieties that suit it and some don't, Grenache is the best. Sauzet also works. And, there's certain reds that work. And I just think it's a good category.
And lower alcohol in general, how are you seeing that?
Well, interesting. Of course, gets me going, because it's been a massive discussion for us last year or two. Lower alcohol is where we believe the future is. This year we've reduced, just by various things. This year, that's 2025 vintage. We've reduced all alcohols between 0.5 and 1%, which is really good. We're reducing, rosé 12%, reducing some whites. I mean, you think when we started 23 years ago, 15 didn't scare us. Now 15 is unsaleable to our customers. We're hoping, 13.5 for us now is max, and we want to go down slowly. And there is certainly cultural things. We're at Languedoc. We've got one challenge of climate, of course, because the climate. You can't pick grapes too young, because the sugar hasn't built. Your potential alcohol hasn't built up. Otherwise, other things aren't right. It hasn't gone through its maturation process. So you're going to lose other things. So it's a challenge. But Vincent's this year, just with certain tweaks and stuff. I mean, some people talk about working with different yeasts and things. We can bring, the technology that's coming out, different yeast that will reduce alcohol levels a bit.
So it is something you're working on.
It is.
And you're doing that through a mixture of different things, yeast or...
Yeast, varietals, planting in different areas. But it's a very long-term thing. But we understand we have to go there. And it is a trend that is on the way. And we've managed this year, last year's vintage, say between nearly up to 1% average reduction. And I think it's a global trend. Yeah. I do laugh when people think they want low alcohol, more healthy. And you go to Carcassonne, there's 5 new, deep fried chicken wing restaurants opened, So, they can get away with producing awful food that's going to kill you. And that's expanding and booming globally. Ultra-processed food, people are eating more and more of that. But everyone's attacking wine as an unhealthy drink. Anyway, that's another discussion. That's another discussion.
Another discussion indeed. But beyond that, Tim is clearly another proponent of chillable reds, also working towards lower alcohols across the board, which is interesting, and then a champion of ancestral grape varieties.
Yeah, well, I mean, we tasted a few of his ultra cami wines made from these kind of historic grape varieties, Macabeu, Grenache Gris, Grenache Noir, and they were delicious, So, Gayda makes a range of grape varieties, including the best-known names, but they also do these slightly more niche things, which Tim says is, important for keeping the heritage and local identity alive, which I think is wonderful. It's really important.
He also seems to be very astute commercially. And he stressed, didn't he, that the future is not about downsizing but right-sizing, i.e. tailoring your business to the changing market conditions, but keeping true to your values and identity. Organics is obviously important to them. So is biodiversity, so is wine quality, so is wine tourism, and so is staying in business.
Wise people. Now, someone else who values the freedom that PAYDOC IGP offers is Nicolas Moine, a winemaker at the organic Domaine de Sauzet in the hills north of Montpellier. Nicolas makes all kinds of things, from chillable reds to orange to low sulfite to blends and single varieties. He even grows PIWIs, or disease-resistant varieties. He says the PAYDOC IGP category allows him, and I quote, to really express the best of each year because I am very free.
Now, we can confirm that these are unashamedly characterful, often excellent wines, from the more affordable end to, for example, the Hic et Nunc label, which comes in both red and white and whose varietal makeup varies from vintage to vintage. It isn't cheap. The red sells for €50, but it is ambitious and at its best, absolutely delicious. Now, Nicolas says his aim is to make fresh, complex wines that sometimes, as he says, are initially shy and need 5 or 6 years to come into their own.
So there is an intriguing kind of ambition at Domaine de Sauzet, not necessarily in the way you might ordinarily expect when you mention that word in a wine context. It all becomes clear chatting with Nicolas. I asked him why Hic et Nunc is a PAYDOC IGP at that kind of price.
It's because it's the golden nugget of the vintage, of each vintage. We don't produce it each year. It's a little production, so almost 1,000 or 2,000 bottles, and there is no rule for the blend. So it could be 100% Syrah, like the 2020. It could be carbonic maceration. It could be traditional fermentation. It could be a lot of things, but the only rule, it has to be the best wine of the 5 last year to be put in that bottle.
Okay, so a surprise.
Yes, and
package.
we were rewarded at the decanter by a platinum medal in 2023. So it works.
And
good.
I've tasted these wines, and they are
Yeah.
delicious. So talk to us about orange wine as well. What are you doing on that front?
Okay, it's very simple. I use grey grapes because it's grey Grenache.
Grenache Gris.
Very versatile variety. So interesting. And I make the wine like if I made a light red. I want to do something very accessible in the style and in the price. So the price is here at the estate is 9.5 euro. And usually in France, the orange wine are more around 20, something like that. And so I want to do this accessible, and the style. Yeah, I don't want something with too much tannin. I don't want bitterness. I don't want bitterness in this kind of wine. I want the people a bit lost, because you will see the color is almost rosé, but it's a white, and this wine like aeration, like a red, give it some hair. And after 2 or 3 days, you have the full flavor coming like a red.
And also, just from a consumer's point of view, you said sometimes people get lost. Are you partly perhaps doing orange wine to challenge people's expectations?
Yes, definitely. I want to. Yes, people are stuck in too many ideas about the wine. They think they cannot taste the wine because they don't have the knowledge. And I think it's a way, if I have a group of people here, you have some people knowing the wine, talking a lot, and you have the other saying nothing because they think they didn't know anything. And if I put orange wine in a glass, everyone is at the same level. And so it's very interesting because there is interaction between people, and they can together try to understand this new kind of wine. Is more inclusive, I mean.
That's really interesting. So, for you, IGP PAYDOC wines can challenge expectations. It can make wine more accessible.
Definitely. That's why we produce with IGP PAYDOC. Yes, because it's more accessible to people, right? In terms of price, in terms of style, in terms of freedom of labels.
Tell us about lighter, chillable reds. Is this a style that is interesting for you right now?
Yes, definitely. Yes, I like the way you can drink a red like in the same, like like a rosé, definitely. And a lot of people here came and they said me, okay, I don't want to drink rosé, and I said, okay, try to chill, to put this red in the fridge, and it's sulfate free. It's only 12 degrees. Low alcohol, and yes, and usually people like it.
But sometimes there can be resistance, can't they? People look at you and say, hang on, chilling reds, that's a bit weird. Why would I do that?
Yeah, usually I put the wine in the glass, they taste it, and after I talk. Because if you talk too much before the tasting, people have the ideas in mind, and it's like even for the organic wine. If you said it's an organic wine, they say, oh, perfect, I only drink organic wine. And the other people, you said it and they said, okay, I don't want to try because organic wine is shit, or I don't know, whatever. So I prefer to try to let tastes without saying too much at the beginning.
And when people do try it and do like a chillable red, why do they like them?
They like because... yes, it's light in alcohol. It's drinkable, so it's good. You drink a glass and you want another one. It's the point. And it's not a complex wine. It's accessible. That means everyone can talk about around a table because it's simple.
PIWIs or hybrids. Do you see these becoming, a bigger part of the future in this part of the world? And if so, why?
I think it could be. The market is quite hard today, and the vintner, the winemaker, try to reduce the cost of production. And I think in this time, the PIWI variety are interesting because you don't have to spray a lot. I mean, 2 times a year. And it's good for the environment because you use less fuel to crop the vineyard. The point is the name of the variety needs to be more known.
And where do you feel we are quality-wise at the moment with the wines made from PIWIs or hybrids?
I think for the wine, usually PIWIs are used to make I think, in my opinion, simple white or simple red, simple rosé, drinkable quickly. But for the market of simple wine, I think, yes, we can go definitely. But probably with strong names of estate, because we cannot use the name of the variety is not known by the people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you work to maximize freshness in your wines and keep alcohols as low as you can?
The time of the harvest, definitely. The blend is very interesting. We can have the flavors with a variety of grapes. For example, we can let a Grenache on the plot for a longer time, and we can have the freshness with Cinsault, for example, and blending both. We have the flavor from the Grenache and a kind of freshness with the Cinsault. I don't modify the acidity putting tartaric acid in the wine. I don't want to make that. So yes, I choose different time to harvest, and also I plant different variety for the future. For example, we planted a plot of Assyrtiko, white. We planted some Picpoul here, and we planted also an old variety, the Clairette. It's more full body. It can give aromas and some bitterness, but not too much. And we work like this. In the same plot, we plant different variety, and we have almost the blend in the plot. The hard part is as winemaker, is to guess what kind of wine we will find on the market in the last in 30 years, because we plant it now for the 20 years coming. So, and here we planted a lot of white.
So the future is white and orange too, I guess. Intriguing, those new plantings of Assyrtiko, Picpoul and Clairette, tying back into what we said at the top about people keen to try new things, adapt to markets, but also to climate change.
Yeah, and I mentioned a different kind of ambition at Domaine de Sauzet, and hopefully that's apparent from what Nicolas was saying. It's this ambition to be inclusive, to engage or even challenge people in a way that goes beyond the simple dynamics of price and variety, be it with orange, with low sulfite, with chillable reds, with different blends.
Now, touching on that ambition, I know Nicolas also stressed the importance of having fun with wine, like Gérard Bertrand in part 1. He says their funky labels reflect that, and he likes it when they become a talking point. He said he's got a winemaking friend in Bordeaux, and they look to the Pays d'Oc to see what's happening at the cutting edge of packaging and styles.
There we go. Talking of fun, do you remember what happened when we visited? We got there quite late. We need to share this. We got to the Domaine de Sauzet quite late on. It was a bit chilly and windy. I think you were particularly cold at the time.
I was.
We were going to eat outside, but I think we managed to cajole them, didn't we, into potentially tasting and eating inside. But at that point, when we were inside, owner Francois Massol's 6-year-old son, delightful boy, rushed in to tell us, brimming with mischievous excitement, how the dog had just brought the table crashing down and was currently tucking into our dinner. It wasn't the best start.
No.
It was a bit of a low point, I'll be honest, at the end of a long, tiring day. But then after that, all was saved. We carried on. There were lots of smiles. We carried on late into the night, enjoying, it was really simple food, stimulating company, and crucially, just relishing those sort of engaging, food-friendly, thought-provoking wines, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting and very funny. Not probably quite at the moment. Right, just before we draw things to a close, we said we'd hear some concluding thoughts from Maison Le Breton. You asked her what the biggest challenges in PAYDOC are and what she'd like to do about them.
The biggest challenge now is thinking of the future. Last year, in 2025, we had these mega fires in the PAYDOC region, especially in the Aude, in Narbonne. It happened just after a big French governmental action where you could remove the vines, because there's less consumption of wine, so you don't need as much vines, so you remove the vines. And we realized that if the vines would have still been there, then maybe they would have stopped part of the fire, because vine is a natural fire slower, It doesn't stop the fire but it can slow it. And when I think of, I told you about this natural agricultural park vision that we have, maybe the purpose of vine in the future won't be to just produce wine. Maybe the purpose of vine will be to protect landscapes, enhance biodiversity, and protect from climate phenomenon like fires. But today I'm having this discussion just with my family, because it's not something that you can discuss. It's not something in the wine industry that you can say that, oh, maybe our vineyards won't be used to make wine. They may be used to be beautiful in the landscapes and to maintain a certain biodiversity and to make sure that the houses won't get burned. But I think this is a reality, and the reality of tomorrow. And when I say we're going to have this conversation in 10 years, I actually know that within 5 years we will have had it, especially in my family, when we think of, okay, we have 200 hectares, 40 hectares of vine. What do we do of these 40 hectares? Do we plant more, plant less? And this is one of the challenge I face today in the PAYDOC area, is we are struggling because of the lowering consumption, and we just have our head in the vines, and we're not able to just take a step back and think, okay, what do we do now?
What do we do now? What do you do now?
Well, I keep on talking and trying to find people who want to talk about it and think of, what do you think of this model, and what do you think of this kind of thing? And we find some people who are actually working on it. And I think wine tourism is going to save the industry. So this is going to be a shift in the mindset, So that's why I think it's going to be hard, because wine tourism is not about saying you can have a tasting at the cellar, It's about creating a real offer. And again, New World do it really, really well. I've had the chance to visit Napa Valley and South Africa, and yet their business is based on wine tourism first, and then they sell wine. So that's this shift that is going to be hard to take, but once we will, I think the profession will feel better, because then the vines will be here for a purpose, because if you want to welcome tourists to see a vineyard, you need the vines. And maybe you will sell more wines as well, even though your first revenue stream is maybe from activities. But these activities will celebrate and honor all the works we have, all the skills we have, all the different types of cultures, of grape varieties, and so on.
Morgane, how do you see the future of IGP PAYDOC?
Beautiful and still free from everything, all the challenges we talked about. I think once a PAYDOC producer embraces this freedom and owns it, starts owning this freedom of choice, of practices, of actions in the cellar, in the office, in the vineyard, then I know we will sell more and more wines.
Wow, lots to digest there. Wine tourism as a potential saviour of the wine industry. We did touch on that in part one with Gérard Bertrand and Jacques Gravajal, who agree, and of course, particularly important here in Mediterranean France. But also then the notion of keeping vines in the ground to preserve the landscape as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost sacrilegious, doesn't it, to our ears, I'm sure to many ears. But, it does make sense, especially if the vineyards are farmed organically or with minimal intervention. So, not damaging the ecosystems around them, like with the agroforestry system Morgane mentioned. And they'd be part of a vineyard experience for visitors, so tying into wine tourism as well.
Yeah, I think as Morgane suggested, it would be a big mindset shift on the part of producers. But of course, that's exactly where we started off this PADOC discussion, wasn't it? Talking about a wine crisis back in the mid-20th century that growers struggled to get their heads around.
Yeah.
And now there's a different set of challenges facing wine producers, but no less serious. And perhaps what Morgane is suggesting might be part of the solution.
Either way, an intriguing note to end on. Perhaps something we'll come back to. In fact, I'm sure it probably is. Anyway, this has been a long episode. We need to wrap up. By way of closing summary, PADOC IGP was born out of an iconoclastic vision for French wine, prioritising quality grape varieties, and over 40 years has proved a resounding success. Now, there's a new crisis facing PADOC producers, but you get the sense that the innovation and forward thinking that's always been at the heart of PADOC IGP will prove constructive, not just for itself, but also the wider wine world.
It's not often in French wine you can have discussions that veer swiftly and meaningfully between things like orange wine, Assyrtiko, wine tourism, ancestral varieties, lightweighting, lower alcohol solutions, PIWIs, funky blends, bag-in-box, organics, Grenache Gris, championing rosé, agroforestry, fighting price points, natural wine, and the importance of fun. Yeah. But here we are, and we hope you've enjoyed it.
Thanks to our interviewees, Lolly Solves from Ricardelle de Lautrec, Morgane Le Breton from Maison Le Breton, Tim Ford from Domaine Gayda, and Nicolas Moine from Domaine de Sauzet. Thanks also to PADOC IGP for sponsoring. And finally, huge thanks, as ever, to you for listening. We're off to have a glass of chillable red, and we'll leave you with the peaceful sound of the gurgling spring brook at Maison Le Breton, where water is another highly prized asset. Until next time, cheers.